have a lot of experience, which when I do things like this that I'm doing today, I look back on and I go through what I've actually done, because I had no idea what I did. It was just something that I experienced. And I think one of the key things was when I looked at these people, and I always try to keep them as real people. And I think the difficult thing is to tell real people that sometimes it's not going to happen. That dream that they have is a nightmare. It's not actually a dream anymore. And it got to a stage where I became very frustrated. I got frustrated because I couldn't hear this anymore. I couldn't see it anymore. And it was always the same thing. Amateurs coming in, and most of the time leaving school at an early age, or finishing typically throughout Europe at the age of 18. Most of the girls already at that time had already stopped, the ones that were in the performance groups. And a lot of the boys, for example in Austria, they had to go to the military. So by the time they'd finished the military, they were looking at ways of sort of falling out of the game. And a lot of them decided, I'll turn pro. And I don't know what it's like in your countries, but at the moment we have probably 35 to 40 playing pros in Austria between the age of 30 and 40 or 45 that are still trying to play the game. They're not earning anything. They have a couple of sponsors and a couple of friends that are looking after them. And for me, it was just something which I looked at and I thought, no, there's something wrong. So what I tried to do is I tried to find a model. And this model, a number of you have probably heard it before. Some of you may not. And it's a model that I use because it's something that I can always go back to. And I've always used it. And it's those 5 words. And if you take a look at them, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to try and imagine what words fit to those 5 initials there. I'm going to give you 1 second, and I'm going to just point a couple of fingers, and if you can give me a couple of words. In.
E for excellence.
Okay.
Mental.
Okay. Paul.
Educate.
Okay.
Breed through mental emotion.
Nope. What I did was, I was with a very good friend of mine and we were going through a couple of areas. And we came up with body, technique, mental, emotional, and social. And this is where I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel because it's already there. So basically, one of your questions is going to be, well, how do I use that, or how did I use it? And what I used to do is, depending on the level of player that I'm working with, to try and get them onto tour, I used to try and look at their skills level. I used to try and analyze where they are at certain stages in their life. So before I could do that, I had to set up the way that I'm going to develop these skills. So for example, if I were to take a system, for example, with this bitmiss, and I were to look at it and say, body, what would be included into body? Nutritional, regeneration, sleep, liquid intake, whatever it may be. So all of that falls into B. Then we go into T, technical. So basically anything that's involved with techniques on the golf course, whether it be yardage books, course planning, course management, strategies, skill acquisition, whatever it may be. Everything that falls into that, technical. Then we go into the mental part of it. And obviously, depending on the level of player that you're working on, you're going to take a look at the mental aspect. And what are the major parts that you would be looking at in the mental aspect on a golf course?
Robustness.
Yep. What else? Routines, maybe? Resilience, routines, whatever it may be. So these all fall under the mental part of it. Emotional. We heard Sarah this afternoon talking about the emotional part of it. And I think for me, when I look at a lot of the players that I worked with and a lot of the players that I'm still working with, from the emotional side of it, I need to follow them a lot on the golf course. I need to observe what they're doing on the golf course. That way I can then look at their emotional skills and see what areas they need to work on. I've just come back from the European Individual Championships, and one of the girls that I work with is a Swiss girl, still from the Swiss team. And the first day she shot 73, 1 over, played fairly well. And that evening we sat down and we went through her Bitmus model. And we came up with a couple of ideas for the next day. And one of the things which she loves is she loves golf balls. So I said to her, okay, what we'll do is for every birdie that you get, I'll give you a golf ball. And for every eagle that you get, I'll give you 2. So she shot 62. Yeah. And for me, it was all I was doing was I was just working between her mental and emotional aspects. The next day she shot 76, but it doesn't matter. She finished 4th, which was good. So those are the things there that I would work in. And then coming back to a big part, which a lot of you have spoken about today, the social aspects of it. And as you know, I'm South African. And being South African, I have an English mom, and I was brought up in an English family. And we were taught that we had to behave and have good social skills. With the result is I use that a lot in my teaching. So what I'd like you to do is, if you don't mind, just have a quick look at that. And imagine now you were taking a player from a very young age up till a point where they are almost ready to go onto tour, where you think as a coach you would put them onto tour. What would the situation look like for you? Just using that model. And I tell you what I've done is over the years I've taken different points at different stages, at different levels of skill setting, and I've worked through that model. So a kid of 14, when it comes to body, we may just use general games. We may just use normal sleeping hours, whatever it may be. But as we develop, this whole Bitmus program blows up like a balloon. And you can imagine all the things that fall into one model. Yeah, so think a little bit about it. Technical part of it. An example from 1.5 years ago. I realized as a coach that in that part there, one of the kids I was working with, who has a club head speed of 128 miles per hour, hits the ball a mile, was struggling with his putting. So I couldn't fix it myself. I probably could have, but I didn't. And what did I do? I sent him off to Stephen Orr in England. And after he'd seen Stephen, he went out to Lytham 2 years ago, finished I think 2nd or 3rd in Lytham, and had the first round of golf where he had 23 putts. So what this allows me also as a coach to do, and also help the players, is to feed out information and get other people in the boat, which Paul, you were talking a little bit about as well. Getting people to fill in those skills where you don't have them as a coach. Yeah. And what I think is that very often you get to a line where, with this model, it's helped me right the way through in all my coaching, because I've always gone back to it. And I've looked at where the player is in his development, or she, and gone through each area and seen, good, in a body, could we improve anywhere? In a technique, can we improve anywhere? In a mental, emotional, or social skills. And as I say, one of the biggest areas, and again, just an example coming back to this part here, is when I left Switzerland 1.5 years ago as national coach, the girls, they presented me with a very nice present. And last week, one of the girls came up to me and she said to me, she said, you know, something that we miss very, very much is that at the table now, all the adults are using their telephones. She said, and none of the girls, because I didn't allow them to use telephones while we were at the table. So, you know, it's just little things like that, how social skills develop inside of a teaching environment. But again, we're coming back now to the individual, and that individual wants to turn pro. And I think we've heard a lot today from Ian about how and what things we need to look for when a player is going to turn professional. From my point of view, I would say 70% of the people that turn professional shouldn't. I think they should stay in the amateur game a lot longer. As you say, they have a very, very nice nest around them where they can work inside and work with. And yeah, I think a lot of them, as it's been said, is from many of the speakers before, is that when they get out of that environment, they struggle a lot. Thoughts for you. I think if I were to summarize what I've done is, I think, bring things into perspective and be realistic. That's one of the key points. Be genuine in the things you're doing. The past paves the way to the future. I think, personally, if they haven't have played the game to a certain standard, I don't think they should even think about turning professional. Have a pathway with clear steps and outcomes. So in their goal setting, realistic goals, good ideas, clear ideas and pathways and outcomes. A solid transition period is a must. It was just something that I was thinking about yesterday, maybe when we have questions afterwards. I have a question to you. Do you think that a playing ability test for playing professionals and an education of 3 months before turning pro would be an idea? And a good look into the future can only help. That means taking them, putting them in the environment and seeing how they react. All I can say, as being a coach and working with elite athletes, I hope that their dreams come true. I've enjoyed working with most of the players, and unfortunately, the dreams don't always come true. Thank you very much.